Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today is going to be another fun activity on using pretty much whatever you have around you plus a glue gun. So I have got these backgrounds here. Some of them are watercolor ones, some of them seem to be hanging around for longer than others, and it's about this time that I kind of think, if you stare at me in the face long enough, I'm going to use you up. So these are just some ink blended ones. These ones are directly blended onto the paper. And then this back one is using the DIY crackle technique, which I have a video on. This is so easy to create and really, really fun too. And I also make an awesome background out of that one. Of course, if you have some patterned paper, then this is also going to be perfect. So it literally is whatever scraps, whatever backgrounds, whatever pieces you have lying around, then these are going to work fantastic for this technique. And this is a fun technique. I haven't had my glue gun out in a little while for crafting, so I am going to go too. I also found this little piece of paint that I had pulled from a jelly plate. That is going to work as well. Then when I go through, I am picking one of these patterns that I think I want to go on top of. Often I find pieces that I don't particularly like, and then you can kind of add to them. And I feel like this changes it up and makes me more likely to use the piece of patterned paper. So I'm just kind of having a flick through. I do really dearly love this paper pad, and so I have made an effort to make sure I keep using it rather than hoarding it, because I also love seeing other people enjoy these patterns too. So I've got this one here that I'm going to work on as well, and these are the final pieces that I've chosen. All you need for this is a glue gun and a couple of other bits in a minute, but this part is super basic. I like to practice on a piece of scrap paper. I also have that little piece of scrap paper there just to collect all my little glue bits. My glue gun has seen some rough times. It is old and it works mediumly, but we're sticking with it. So what we're going to do is just kind of create some leaf shapes. That's what I'm roughly going for today. I will also show you some other shapes, but this is just a nice easy one. This is so easy. There is not much to it. Kind of a round, I like to put a little bit more of a point on it than that one I just created, and then a stick down the middle and you are good to go. Often I find when my glue gun is still heating up and I'm rushing the process, then it goes a little bit lumpy like it is here. I should have waited just another 30 seconds or so until it heated up properly, but I'm never impatient, I'm sure. So this is all there is to it at this point. I am going to be filling up these backgrounds, and there is one huge bonus to using the glue gun, which I will kind of work on a little bit later on in this video, but this makes life so much easier. So all I do is I just go through and fill these backgrounds with the patterns that I want to use. In this case, I find that leaves are very universal. You can also cut out things like love hearts. You can do any sorts of shapes, circles, trees, feathers, flowers. I mean, the world is your oyster, so go for gold and create some shapes. As I said, I find leaves are so universal because I can add them to anything. They can also be used for any occasion. You can dress them up to be birthday. You can dull them down to be kind of more sympathy cards or something like that, thinking of you. So it can be used for everything, which is what I like if I'm going to dip back into them later on. So I just go through all my scrap pieces, whatever I have sitting around, whether it be gel prints, it just be backgrounds, it be patterned paper, and I just do all different sizes to make sure that I have a variety. And I am going to turn these into a card view today, just so you can see kind of what I could or would do with them, albeit there are so many different options. This one here is meant to look something like a feather, although my abilities for drawing are very, very limited, and even more limited when I'm drawing with a glue gun. But I think if you just give things a go and then you kind of dress it up around it so that people can see more so what it's meant to be, then we kind of just keep going with it at this point. So feather, leaf, I'm not sure, depends what you see. And then here I'm also going to draw something a little bit freehand, which again is not my forte, but basic is good. So I kind of just do a little flower shape, add a stem, add a leaf, and then I think I will also do another little flower coming off of it. And I'm actually going to fussy cut this out, but this is much easier than you kind of think it would be. So don't worry about all your little little bits that come off the glue gun, the spider webby bits, because we have a way to solve those later on. Then on this background, I thought maybe I would just leave this as a background and create it into more of a background. So I'm just doing leaves again, and I know it's hard for you guys to see, but I can see obviously where I'm putting all of these, and I'm bunching them relatively close together. And I actually think this is maybe one of my favorite things that I created today. I was so surprised how this turned out and how we kind of changed the look of it. I really, really love this one, so this is definitely a keeper for me. I did decide to go right pretty much off the edges. I know I'll trim this down just a little bit because the crackle technique doesn't go right to the edges, but nonetheless, I do end up loving that one. So you can see all the glue dries, hot glue gun dries pretty quick. I did just cut the excess off this one because I don't need all of that extra little bit. And I decided to go on the black side rather than the feather side. So now we need some wax, and I have a couple of different ones here, and boy are some of these old. These ones are not so bad. These are the Prima Alchemy ones, and these are really fun. They also have the Opal Magic ones, which I used to use a lot back in mixed media, but I also have the Inca Golds. These ones are really, I think I've maybe, I don't know, coming up 8, maybe 9 years, and these just keep going. Sometimes I add a little bit of water to spritz them if they're not kind of wet enough, but they keep going and keep going. Also, I have used some of the Lunar paste to kind of put on the top. It's not as easy, but it definitely is still doable. I did think maybe you could use an alcohol marker or something like that to go over top as well. Anything that is going to stick to a non-porous surface. So you can have a look around in your stash and see what you might be able to use. With all those little spiderwebby pieces, I'm just going to quickly zap these with the heat gun and the spiderweb pieces disappear, which is my favorite little easy trick. And then all I do is put a little bit of wax on my finger. A little bit goes a very long way, and I just go over the top of the glue gun. Now, this is really pretty fast, and you can obviously use whatever colors you want. I like this gold one. It's probably one of my favorites, and I think it goes really nicely over top of the blues. It goes really nicely actually over top of everything, even the oranges and the reds. It looks really good. I don't mind with that some of the wax gets in between and on the kind of inside pieces. I quite like that look. It kind of is a little bit more freestyle and a little bit more just, you know, handmade kind of thing. But if you don't, then you can be a little bit more careful and go a little bit more slow than I am. But it gives this gorgeous shine. And this is the type of product that lasts literally forever. So it is a good one to pop into your stash. Now here's my background, and I'm putting on some of the gold, and I think this looks okay. This is kind of how things progress in my mind. I'm going around the outside like the rest of them. It doesn't stand out. I mean, it stands out a lot, but it doesn't quite stand out enough. And I think it's a really busy, bold background that I've got going on there. So the leaves just don't quite have quite enough punch for my liking. But when I kind of stood back and look at it, and you can see my brain kind of churning over when I kind of go around, and I'm like, it's okay. It's kind of okay. And I look at it, I hold it up, and I love the shine. The shine is one of my most favorite things about this wax. But I think if I just colored them in a little bit, how do I think that would look? So I start off and do a tiny little bit, and then I really like it. So I go in a little bit heavier and add a bit more. I'm just pretty much using exactly what's left on my finger. This wax goes a long way. And so I just fill them in a little bit, and I really like that look. I think that takes over the background a little bit better, and this one is absolutely gorgeous and shiny in real life. So that was fun. This one I'm going to be using the copper. I think it's a copper color. I have a few colors, maybe 3 or 4, and they all work well. You can layer them up together. If you wanted to use a couple, you could add gold on top of this. In fact, I think I did add a little bit of gold on top of this one. And yeah, so you can keep layering them up as you want to. But yeah, these are the backgrounds that I have created so far. I've made all of my leaves, my feathers, my flowers, whatever you would like to call them. From here, we are going to fussy cut these out. Now, I said there is a bit of a trick, and one of the best things about using a glue gun for this is that fussy cutting is not tricky because your scissors literally just glide around the outside of the glue. So it's not like you're trying to cut out a stamped image and you have to be really careful and precise. Your scissors go around the outside of the glue, and it makes it so easy. So this is the type of fussy cutting that I truly don't mind doing. You also have the ability, if your glue gun went a little bit funny or it got a little bit flat, you have the ability to cut the glue through your scissors. But honestly, I just went through and it was really easy. Even better with this one here that I created, you know when you're cutting out a stem, you're fussy cutting out a stem and it's really thin and your paper, you're like, oh, this is touch and go, whether this is going to stay together or whether I'm going to rip this. Well, given that we have the glue gun on top here, this is a nice kind of layer of plastic and you are not going to rip this, it's not going to fall apart. Yes, it is dainty because it's a thin stem, but it is not at all like working just with paper. It's got that nice thick layer on top, so this does make fussy cutting out really skinny items like this stem here much easier, and I think that looks pretty cool once we are all finished. So I go ahead and fussy cut some of those things. I kind of like my feather in the end and I end up using it in another project, but I thought I would quickly show you how I'm going to finish off one project today. So I love the little leaves and that's what I was kind of going for with this one. So I'm going to start very basic. I have the Tim Holtz Tiles stencil here. This is one of my favorites and I'm going to go with the same gold that I put on the leaves for this one. And I just put a tiny little bit on my finger, not much at all. I don't want too much because I don't want this to be kind of in the forefront. This is truly just a little bit of noise going on in the background, and so it is just going to give a little bit of shine. If I added more, it would definitely shine a lot more, but as I said, this is just a tiny little bit of background noise. You could also use some ink or something to do this, but I think just since I had the wax out that it's going to work perfectly. Then I have this little piece of scrap paper because I know I want to keep incorporating some of the gold. So I'm going to take some of the wax and create a little strip that will go on my card as well. So again, I just use my finger. It truly is the easiest. It comes off your finger with a wet, like a damp cloth, and it just rubs off. And then to get a nice even shine and no kind of fingerprints or anything in it, I just take a dry paper towel and rub it up and down, and it gives this gorgeous shiny gold finish, and it dries super quick. So once I've done that, I'll put that aside to properly dry and come back to making my design. So these are the leaves I chose to go with. These are the ones that were from the patterned paper, from that paper pad, the Simple Stories one. And I'm just going to have these kind of cascading down, I guess, a little bit. I had a little bit of wax, wet wax on the back of one of these leaves. So I did make a little blip kind of bit there on the right hand side, so I'm making sure to cover that up, and I have to make sure that the leaf kind of covers that little piece. That's why that one is always just sitting there. But we work with what we've got, and I could have started again, but no point in that. Once I've got my design, I'm going to pop these down with some liquid glue. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, really nice and strong, so I know that this is not going to be going anywhere. And then once I'd done this, I should have thought about this first, but I decided to cut this edge off and have these hanging over the edge. Now, absolutely, I should have done this first, and it would have made life a whole lot easier, but as I said, it's super easy to fussy cut around the leaves, and I can just do that in a couple of seconds. So not tricky at all. Then I trim a tiny little bit off the other side, and this is going to make a nice kind of strip for my card as well. Now you could also use this technique on fabric. I think that would look really cool as well, because the glue gun is going to stick perfectly to fabric. So if you have any spare scraps, you could use it on that too. I mean, so many different options. It really is just adding a little bit to your backgrounds or your fabric and then having another use for them. So if you are inspired by this card, I would love to see your versions. And the best place that you can do that is over on our Facebook page. It's called Come Crafting with Natasha. We would love to see you there. There's a link to it down below in case you're interested, or you can just search it on Facebook. And I also have links to pretty much most of the products that I have used in today's video. However, I'm sure you pretty much have everything ready to go in your crafting space for this project if you have a hot glue gun and maybe some of the wax. That is a fun investment, even if you just get one, and then there are so many different techniques out there just for using this as well. I decided to add in a little bit of lace just to kind of dress up the edge here. I could have used a die cut lace border, but I really love the real thing. I think adding in different textures and things is always fun when it's coming to card making. But again, if you have any little trim, any little piece of pattern paper, I think that would break it up really nicely. I added some foam tape behind that just to pop it up a little bit and give it a little bit of dimension on my card. And this one here, I actually wanted to keep this one. I love this card so much, so I wanted to keep this for myself, and I didn't know which sentiment I was going to use for this. I don't know what I'm going to use it for at the moment, but for whatever reason, I just love this card, and so I wanted to keep it. So I'm actually not going to stick a sentiment on here at the moment, but just to give you an idea, I would pick one kind of like this little Hello Gorgeous and pop it probably just daintily right there. I don't think the card needs any more. I think it speaks for itself, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video today. Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think of this technique, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!